And good evening, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of the African American Athlete. I'm Ricky Hampton with my great friend and frat brother, Michael Roberson, coming to you on a Friday evening. Hope everybody's having a fantastic start to the weekend. Uh, Just check it. Yeah, we are up and running. Again, welcome everybody to the African American Athlete. Mike, you got a special guest here tonight. I'm going to give you the honor of introducing this great journalist to our friends out there.
All right. Once again, our friend of the show and a media colleague from the city of brotherly love. And also, he and I both had doldrums here in the baseball playoffs with both of our home teams taking a dive to the Dodgers. But yeah, without further ado,
whoa, brother, I'm in Detroit, man. Are you kidding me?
I know, yeah, we got it too. But being from Nashville, you got to go with the what your affiliate is. So,
Shoot,
isn't Nashville with Milwaukee now?
Huh?
I think Nashville is the AAA for Milwaukee now.
Oh, so, they've been the AAA for everybody.
I know. Yeah, when I was there in Cincinnati. But yeah, so without further ado, Michael Tillery, hailing from Philly, and like I said, he had the great honor of his team winning another Super Bowl. What is that like to have that happen? So yeah. So without further ado, Mike Tillery, welcome to the airwaves with us again.
Thanks, Ricky. Thanks, Mike.
Hey, but fellas, really, it would have been better if the Tigers would have been out of the race in May. Then I wouldn't have had to go.
Yeah, but see, you got that. I got to see the best record in the whole league, and look at how they took a face dive, which I told you they would do.
Man. Well, you know what? As well as they were playing the first half, I knew they weren't that good. But damn, they weren't that bad either. But Mike Tillery, you old school and you're our guest tonight. Why is it these guys are pulling these pictures? We got the best pitcher in the world. Scooble is a dog. You hear me?
Yeah.
But he only pitches 6 innings, man.
Yeah. We're from the old school. We had aces going. And sometimes, like I was an Oakland A's fan back then. So you had Dave Stewart, you had a bunch of those dudes in line. Mike Norris? They all won 20 games.
Yeah.
Those dudes were not taken out unless they had to. It wasn't about right hitter versus right pitcher. It was none of that. It is a weird thing. Like it kind of drains me a little bit because even as a coach, I coached 20 years in baseball from little kids all the way up to 16, 18. And I was 19 when I was coaching 16, 18. But it was when you knew when you took out a pitcher, you were going to lose. You just had that feeling because they were used to him and they did not want to see him again. So you take him out and put somebody else that gives them a reason to exhale.
Exactly.
And what happens? Bomb to center field or, CNI single or all kinds of stuff that happen. Even a hit batter. Bases loaded. These things always happen. So I don't understand this era of baseball in terms of these bullpen games because it makes me lose interest. I want to see the resilience of a pitcher. We grew up watching Nolan Ryan.
Yeah.
He would have 7 walks and 15 strikeouts.
Yeah. I watched Bob Gibson. Bob Gibson would cuss your ass out. You try to take him out of the game.
There you go.
And that's why, as great as Scooble is, I really can't say he's a great pitcher because fuck, you're just going 6 innings, man. And we're in the 5th game. Let me vent here, guys. We're in the 5th grade with 5th and final deciding game with Milwaukee. You up a run. You take him out after 6 innings. You know what he did his last inning? He struck out the side.
Yeah.
And the last pitch he threw 101.
Yes. Yes.
I know the Mariners over there. Thank you for taking him out. And on top of that, Mike Robinson, Who we saving his arm for? The Dodgers? The Yankees? We ain't gonna be able to pay his ass when he get ready to leave Detroit. Get out of here.
You know New York is coming after him.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, look at the key play with the Brewers.
Yes, he is. I got to put an asterisk by him. I'm done. I'm done with that.
But look at the key play at the Brewers. Remember they had after that fiasco, they came all the way back to tie the Dodgers. Yeah. No, to be within one run, and you had a guy get out of the way of a hit batsman situation, which would have tied the game. Then he goes ahead and swings at a high fastball, and the game's over. So
that high fastball has been a weapon all year in Major League Baseball, even more so than recent years. So it's going to change the strike zone.
Hey, Don Baylor would have took that thing, and what JC say, brush your shoulders off.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
He'd have tried it down first base. But you know what, guy? I gotta say, what Ohtani did. What was the closeout game?
It was game 4.
Second home sweep. The second home run he hit.
Well, not only that, though, Ricky, he was in a slump.
Mm-hmm.
That was a slump-breaking game. Mm-hmm. He got on the mound, felt comfortable, and said, you know what? I'm going to do something historic. I'm going to hit 3 home runs like Reggie Jackson. Then I'm going to throw 10 strikeouts like Bob Gibson. He had all that in one game. And I said, come on, Brewers, really?
Yeah.
Doesn't he have 3 home run games this postseason already?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he has.
I know he got a 2-run home. I know he got He's got like 6.
I'm saying 3 home runs. I'm trying to think. Did he have 3 more home runs?
No, I think he got 2. He had 2 home runs.
Who they play in the first series? The Philly, right?
Yeah, I think he did.
Did he have 3 home runs against the Philly?
I think he did.
Okay.
Because that was my first, because that 3 home run game with Reggie was the first game I ever went to.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, my dad had a business meeting up in New York, and he got those tickets. And I mean, we had went to Boston earlier, and so in Boston, my dad he was trying to beat everybody's ass because people were so racist up there, But that Dodger game was incredible because being from this city here and going to that game, I was never a Phillies fan. How could I be? So I wore 44 when I played baseball to the last game I played. And that led me to Hank Aaron, which led me to Willie Mays, which led me to all the Negro Leagues. So it was almost like I was supposed to be there because, I went down that rabbit hole all the way to the Homestead Grays.
Yeah. And now when you look at the state of baseball today with our people, and then, I asked where are they, and half of them in the NBA and the NFL, we just aren't playing. We just don't. You can't tell me we can't play the game. We just don't have enough kids for whatever reason playing, or do we have that proper access to that game?
The perfect example would be Kyler Murray. Kyler Murray's running around getting criticized so much by the Arizona and all that. That guy should have been playing with the A's right now. I don't know if he'd be happy in Sacramento, but still.
Right. Russell Wilson.
Jaden Daniels was a baseball player.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot. But, the thing is from being a coach and coaching in Wilmington, Delaware, and, Pennsylvania, and also down in Maryland, when I was coaching in Wilmington, I would have to carry around forms to practice on fields. I had to have the form ready because inevitably there would be someone from the city that would say, you can't coach on this field. My kids would be so sad in doing that. And I would see my white counterparts be able to practice on every field they could. What happened was I taught my kids to steal home. I would draw a line in the sand down the third base line, and whether or not he was in a windup or what have you, I would tell him to go. And I was blowing teams out because I had Black and Latino players that I took from the 12-year-old All-Star team and took the whole team over to a predominantly white league. And they were like, why are these kids so good? I did have one kid on my squad who was a white kid named Randy Hodges, who was probably the best hitter I ever had. He was a fireball pitcher. They wouldn't let me coach the 13-year-old All-Star game, which I thought was kind of weird. And, because I had this kid that was just striking everybody out. And then with the base runners, it was incredible. Like, it was an incredible thing. But in that case, they were, I don't know, envious or just didn't want me to have that, that access to that league, because these kids were showing up in Porsches. They were showing up in Mercedes-Benz with the best equipment. Man, we were scrambling for gloves. We had to use each other's gloves and stuff like that. I had a former Negro player. His name was Sam Harrison, who was my assistant coach. And this guy was a fireball dude. He would holler at these kids so much that his teeth would fall out. And he would pick them up off the plate and put them right back in his mouth. So that was very challenging, as a young coach, to see how, they were really trying to push me out of the league based on the success of my kids, because they were spending all this money. My kids weren't spending nothing.
Well, guys, tell me this, Mike Roberson, then you Mike Tillery, and in addition to that, Mike, I want to ask you about the technical point of what has to happen for somebody to steal home base, because you don't see it anymore. So as a coach, I want to hear that from you. But first and foremost, your thoughts about why are we not getting more guys playing the game, Mike Roberson? Your thoughts on that? Then add that last point for me.
We can go back to when I was like in 5th and 6th grade. So I was part of that whole busing thing that was going across the whole country. Now everybody talks about what happened in Boston in '75. So I was going through busing in my area in Wisconsin. And we were out at one school called Franksville, which was famous for sauerkraut. Because, that's a German area where I live. German and Dutch and all this. Right. So the sauerkraut factory is right behind us. And we used to smell that stuff every recess. It was horrible. But we were out there. We were used to it. We were used to getting bussed out there. So they had a baseball tryout. And we grew up playing wall ball. Anybody from the hood knows wall ball.
Wall ball, yes.
Paint a square on a wall at a school or somewhere, and you got maybe one or two people outfield, or no, a pitcher and an outfielder, and you had to know how to catch a ball off the bat like that, and not have much wiggle room. And then you had to know how to, face whatever the pitch that was coming up there. But you didn't have any arguments because, hey, man, the ball landed inside that square. It's marked there. It's not an imaginary thing that an umpire can say, well, the strike zone moved over a little bit. No, you absolutely knew where the strike zone was. So we went out there and was trying out for the team. So I'm out there, of course, Dave Parker's my guy. But I'm out here making catches and all this stuff. And it was no problem hitting the fastball because we were used to it. And the coach was excited. He's calling me Sixto Lascano. He used to play for the Brewers.
Oh, well, I remember Sixto.
But I said, no, with all due respect, coach, no, I'm Dave Parker. So then also everything was over there. The coach was excited because it was about 4 or 5 of us brothers. And all the parents said, they had to do all this whispering that. It's, oh, yeah, sorry, guys. You guys are not going to be able to play on the team because you don't live out here. I said, you forced us to go to school out here, but we can't play on the team out here with the guys that we go to school with. And this is like had to have been around 79. So I was thinking of it this way: what if we'd have been on that team and went to the Little League World Series? Because the next year, that's when Gary Sheffield and what's his name was on that Tampa team. And I'll never forget looking at that there. man, that should have been us playing down in Williamsport. So yeah, so that right there discouraged me. So then they were talking about, go play at the Y or something like that. I said, dude, nobody got any money to play at the Y. So then high school got messed up because the busing was still continuing. I had to go to this high school because of busing. And this particular high school, unlike every other high school in the city, played baseball in the summer. I'm like, dude, I'm not going to waste my summer, playing an academic sport that should be during the school year. So I just totally got discouraged from playing baseball. Even though I was a track star, I would have played baseball as track, even though I was one of the best hurdlers in the state, a high jumper, a relay. But I love baseball more than I did track. But it got discouraged right there, and then later on in high school.
Your thoughts, Mike?
Well, as you guys were talking, I was thinking about them Cruz dudes, them 6'5", rocket arm dude, one in Pittsburgh, one in Cincinnati. Yeah. I think they're going to be the players that are going to take base running and a 5-tool talent, into the next generation just because of their physical gifts. So what I think is because of, their presence, some young kids will want to pick up a bat because they're so electrifying, even their strikeouts are electrifying. Like they're really, really good players. You got Chaz Chisholm on the Yankees, who is a flamboyant player. Sometimes he gets in trouble. Even up in New York, they don't like him sometimes, which I think is ridiculous. But we have those players. The thing I think that is happening, obviously, you have a baseball field that's usually a softball field in the hood, and you have a basketball court. So the kids just going to the basketball court, you see glass all over the baseball field. The grass is growing in. Nobody even cares about the field. You see the rusted backstops. You might even see a field that doesn't even have a mound. So the dads, because of our history with basketball and football, are pushing their kids to those sports. I remember, coaching the championship game that 13 for the 13-year-old squad that I alluded to earlier. And we had to play the championship game with 7 players. So I had, one in left center, one in right center. We lost 9-7. It was very disappointing. I'm not going to talk about the player who didn't show up because he's on my Facebook page, and it's crazy because I have 40-year-old, former players now. Like I said, I was 19 when I coached them.
Young yourself, yeah.
Something, But
how'd they let you guys play though? With 7 players?
They let us play because they thought they were going to beat us.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And I had this kid named Jason Williams. Left-handed, man, he hit a ball so far in that game. And we started to, come back, but, we just couldn't sustain it because we didn't have the outfielders.
Right.
Even though we had an extraordinary pitcher, but there was balls that probably would have went to the left field or the center fielder. Yeah. So we ended up losing, and they loved us losing, and I was in position, like I said earlier, I was in position to coach the 13-year-old all-star team that year because of where we finished, and they didn't let me coach. It was a ridiculous thing when being in Delaware. It just wasn't a lot of black players. I think when I was in high school, I think there were only 3 total black players in a whole state in high school. So it was really something. So when you showed up, they either knew that you were really good or you were just sitting on the bench. And most of the times, the black players were hitting. Matter of fact, it was Delino DeShields, and it was Derek May, whose father and him both played in the major leagues for a while. And I was the guy who didn't make it, but it was really something because that just gave me an extra incentive. You know, I know we were going tournaments and stuff like that. We went to this one tournament, like off in the distance was this huge Confederate flag, and it was waving, and it was maybe, I'm thinking, a half mile away, but it was so big that you could see it when I came up the plate. It was Mechanicsburg, Maryland.
Virginia? Okay.
Mechanicsburg, PA. You had to go through Maryland to get to it. But man, I hit the ball so far when I came up the bat, you know, because the pitcher, you know, it was the last inning of the game. We were down by 2 runs. It was bases loaded, and they called me Mighty Joe Young.
Wow.
The pitcher called me Mighty Joe Young. I didn't say anything, but like I said, I hit that ball so far.
Wow.
What did he say then?
It was so crazy that, you know, after game tournaments like that, you know, you want to chill and stuff like that. We got in the car and we left.
Yeah.
You know, coach was like, let's go. You know, so it wasn't really any celebration on the field because we knew what it was. Like I said, that Confederate flag was just so big, it was so prominent. It was, you know, it was like it was a symbol of what those people were.
Hey, you know, and I was going to ask you about Still at Home. Nobody does it now. Jackie Robinson used to do it all the time back in the day. I mean, I don't even know how you do that. What are you looking for before you hit the go button there?
Well, obviously, you know, in the younger levels, you know, even in high school, you're looking for that pitcher to make a mistake to go into the windup. You know, oh my gosh.
He's pitching out of the stretch, though.
Pitching out of the stretch, you know, and, you know, so as soon as he does that, I say, even if he throws over to third, it's a balk, you know. So you're trying to put pressure on them the whole time by just, you know, teasing up the line, clapping your hands, doing whatever. We had that type of Negro League flair on my team, you know, because of, again, the presence of this Negro League player in Sam Harrison. So it was really something how we put pressure on the. I only bunted, you know, maybe the first 2 players because they just were speedy dudes. I know I needed them on the field so they can get to third base and steal home. But what I would do was I would go maybe 15 feet or 20 feet down the line and mark it. And I said, every play, you get closer to that line. And if that pitcher falters or, you know, pulls his attention or, you know, looking at the girls or whatever, go. That's all I would say was go. And
now, does it depend on which hand the pitcher is?
Well, of course, if he was left-handed, you know, we had an advantage.
Yeah.
You know, but it was really something because you had to teach the batters and even the hitters to not fear the potential of hitting that ball down the line. And that's the reason why, you know, especially at third base, when you're taking that lead, you're in the foul area. So you're not in position to get hit with the ball. Right. You know, I'm knocking on wood. I hope that never happens to kids. But if you're an aggressive coach who wants to steal home, obviously that potential is there. But the timing of it has to be correct for injury to happen.
That's really interesting. And you know what? I know you felt that, Michael. He said the Negro League flair. Right. We all knew what he was talking about.
Right.
And I hadn't really seen anybody play like that since Ricky left.
Right.
Because Ricky had that. I mean, he like, throw over here if you want, because I'm gone, bro.
So, Mike, what wasn't another scenario when maybe the catcher would throw the ball back to the pitcher lazily?
Oh yes, of course. Yeah. That was the easiest way. I really didn't even want to acquire runs that way. I wanted to challenge the pitcher to put the pressure on the defense as well as the pitcher and as well as the coach over there who's walking up and down the sideline because he knew I was going to steal no matter what. You know, if the kids were just too fast, you know, those kids end up being basketball players later on, with the exception of Randy Hodges. Randy Hodges went to the pros, but it was really something of that confidence that I kind of garnered. You know, we kind of lost a couple of our first games because the kids were playing against 14 and 15-year-olds and they're 13. But once they got the timing down and could hit that breaking ball, we were rocking everybody. We just didn't have, non-players in the championship game. It would have been one of my most happiest moments in my life because it was a year before I coached the 12-year team I'm talking about. We lost to the state champion in all-star competition, and we would have went to Williamsport at that time. That's how it was, because the best player on my team, the shortstop, his name was Damon. He dropped a pop fly with 2 outs, and it was running on third base, and running on second as well, and both of them scored to win the game against a team named Piedmont, and it was a moment that I know that Damon probably remembers all the time, and that's very unfortunate. But it seems like as athletes, everyone has that dubious moment that we want to forget that we can't.
Yep.
Hey, I didn't know we were going to talk this much baseball at the beginning. I knew we'd get to it with the World Series. Since we've done that, so we can move on to a topic I really want to get to. Who you guys like in the series? Mike Roberson.
Well, like I was explaining to Mike earlier, of course, I'm disappointed. Both of our teams lost to the Dodgers, so you would think that we don't want the Dodgers to win. But Dave Johnson has a chance to be the winningest black manager. Even though they want to call him Japanese, right? He'll have 3 World Series. Nobody's done that.
Mm-hmm.
And coincidentally, he's going to be going against a team that had the guy that does have 2 in a row,
Cito Gaston.
And Cito Gaston and Joe Carter are going to be like honorary captains or throw out first pitch or something like that. So we look forward to that. So in that case, I don't mind if the Dodgers win, but it'd still be cool even if Toronto won, because they haven't won since '93, and that's a long time ago if you really think about it. But then again, the Brewers have never won, so I'm still sore about that. So it's one of those ones where I don't really care who wins, but I would kind of lean towards seeing somebody make history, seeing Dave Johnson, and I've talked with him too. So I never met Cito. I don't think, unless maybe when I was covering the Brewers, but I can't really remember if I talked with him, but I may have. But I talked with Dave recently, and he's been real cool, and we've had some good conversations. So in that case, and then of course I like Mookie Betts too. So I don't really know too many people on Toronto but Vlad, and of course we loved his father back in the day. Mm-hmm. So I would say I would probably make it 51%, 49%. So 51%, I'll probably go towards the Dodgers, and it's that close where if Toronto won, it'll be okay.
Who do you think's going to win, Mike?
I think it's going to be Toronto, because Vlad the Impaler Jr. is just on a streak, just a hot. You guys both drink your juice, your drinks at the same exact time.
No, when you said hot.
But I gotta go with Toronto. Like even though we're supposed to be objective journalists here, I could never pick the Dodgers.
and you know what? It's a good point you made about Vlad, because I think because Ohtani's getting all this love, and then look, you got to get a dude prop. Right. I think Vlad wants to show what he can do too.
Oh yeah, he's a monster, and then
he got the world watching him now. So.
Yeah, and then you got the guy. Remember when we were younger, you always had guys that would go to teams, no matter what team they were on, they would always be successful.
Yeah.
Where that guy now in this era is George Springer.
Yes, Springer.
Him, going from the multitude of squads that were playoffs teams, and then now he's in the World Series again. With Toronto and getting the hits that he needs to hit. They got that that young rookie pitcher who has a great story. Yep. These Blue Jays again are the best since that Joe Carter 93 squad. And my son was born on that day that Joe Carter hit that home run. I was in the hospital watching it. But yeah, it just seems like every so often, like this Toronto team is doing big things. You got Boba Fett. Boba Fett is finally, I think, on the play in this series more than he has. They have a balanced team, and of course, it's that juggernaut that they have named Guerrero. And it's funny because I remember just watching All-Star games and this and that where little Vlad was running around. But that's how you get that experience. That's how you get that nuance, because you're around the game. Like I talk about it all the time with Jalen Hurts and his dad being a high school coach. You get the game naturally. You see, the smoothness, like you saw with Ken Griffey Jr., even obviously with Bobby and Barry Bonds, you're seeing it with, the Bichettes, even, other players whose dad has played in the league. They just have a different demeanor because the game comes naturally to them and they already have the nuances.
Yeah, and they've seen it all.
Well, you know what? When you said Springer, though, you could almost say the same thing for Freeman with the Dodgers.
Freeman, yes, yep.
Freeman,
yep.
Yeah. And then also when you talk about that connection, we got it with the guy I went to school with, but also was TSU's coach, Rod Reed, with his son Marcel, because Marcel used to be a ball boy for him. And then Rod Reed was a legacy where his father was a great player at TSU. Yeah. So yeah, you're right about that. But like I said before, it's kind of like up there like that because it's scenarios. Because think about this, guys, and I don't want to go too long with this, but just think of if the Brewers would have played Seattle for the championship. Do you realize that would have been like a Seattle reunion? Because the Brewers are formerly the Seattle Pilots.
Right. That's right.
So just think how much nostalgia would have been in that.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and neither one has won a championship. So they've been like one of those desperate moments for
right there.
The team that I thought was possibly going to win one was Harvey's Wallbangers with Ben Oglesby.
I'm still sore about that. And that was sophomore year.
Was it 83? Is it 83?
No, it was 82.
82, okay.
Yeah, it was my sophomore year. So, and then it was the White Sox the next year. Then it was the Cubs. And in that Cubs time frame, it was bananas in the Chicago area because the Cubs were in the World Series. We lost Benji, the Hooper.
Yeah.
Yep. And Michael Jordan that was his rookie year. So Chicago was on fire. And then they had Harold Washington, black mayor.
Oh, that's right.
Jesse Jackson ran for president. It was like Chicago, and Oprah was blowing up. It was like Chicago was on fire at that time. So
hey, but I want to get to the story of the week here. The gambling probe with the FBI that led to the arrest of Portland Trailblazers coach Chauncey Billups, Terry Rozier, former NBA Damon Jones, all have been arrested by the NBA. Various charges involving illegal gambling. And Mike Tiller, when you heard this, what was your first reaction?
I didn't want to believe it. I just didn't want to believe it because I know how hard, in particular, Chauncey Billups has worked as a coach. I haven't talked to him in quite some time. Matter of fact, I was talking to him outside of a club when Zab Judah and Floyd Mayweather was going at Chris Webber's Bada Bling in Vegas. But, I was trying to get him to go into coaching, back then and talking to him outside that club. And I was so proud of him, even though early on, his teams just weren't, playing the way they should for him. But now Shaden Sharp is a beast. That squad that he has now, he went and got Drew Holiday and, Dame's back, so it's, it was something to behold. So I was so disappointed. Now, everybody obviously is innocent to proven guilty. But I was just so disappointed that Chauncey, in particular, was involved in this, because the thing about Chauncey Billups is this: his peer was Steve Nash. And Steve Nash always got all of the accolades. He got the MVPs, even though I felt definitively that Chauncey Billups was a better player offensively, defensively, and, in the clutch. So, again, it was hard. It was so hard to hear this. Now, me also being a former blackjack and poker dealer, I know that there's games going on all over the place. It's something they want. They're trying to get these experienced dealers so they can have these games at all these locations all over the place. There's probably a game going on right now somewhere. But there was a bunch of allegedly a bunch of nefarious stuff happening in terms of X-rays, in terms of contact lenses, and all types of things. It was in those cases you have to have a middleman, for this stuff to go down. So they were alluding to the specter of another person involved that either hasn't been arrested yet or will be arrested. I'm very interested to see who that person is, because why aren't you saying his name? But this is something that's going to go on probably for a whole year. It's just really sad when I saw Chauncey walking into the car and his wife was next to him. I could just see just the embarrassment, in their face that they had, because they love for us to have that perk walk, but it was really something just to see this going on. The Damon Jones stuff, obviously he was tipping off, people of injury reports and this and that, because, from covering games, you get the injury report, before the game starts, but they wait and hold on to it until the last minute. So if someone's getting this information, privy to getting this information, more readily and way before the press knows it, then it's going to cause people to bet based on that injury report. It's an obvious thing. And, I'm just very glad that LeBron isn't, involved in this as well. But the biggest problem for me here, though, is this. The NBA season right now is one of the most exciting starts to a season that we have ever seen, and it's only 2 games in. You see in Wemby and SCA and, Aaron Gordon scoring 50 points. Good gosh.
Goodness, man. But I covered Chauncey and the Bad Boys as a columnist when they won in 2004. And the dude, you called him so right. My brother is so smart, so calm, such a level-headed guy. Mm-hmm. I can't believe he would get himself caught up in this. I just can't see him getting caught up in that stuff. And he definitely. I'm showing deference, benefit of doubt, and all that to prove him guilty. But that's not the Chauncey Billups.
But once again, we keep eluding the elephant in the room. Mafia.
Yes.
And somebody even put on there, well, why are they not showing pictures of them? I said, dude, they move in silence, and they have the complexion for protection. And the person liked what I said. And I said, that's what's going to happen. Yeah, they're the baseline people, or supposedly the one that put these guys in there. And they also had face cards. They were calling the players that were losing their money, or the rich people, whatever they were losing their money. They would call them face cards. And then, of course, if we do it that way, then the mafia is probably the royal family. The kings and the queens and that.
And now on this, guys, let's be honest, we got the FBI in it, and we got a guy in D.C. who hates the NBA. He hates the NFL. He hates LeBron James. If there was any way they could throw, I texted this to Mike the other day, if there's any way they could throw LBJ into this, they're going to try to do it.
And the only way it would be is through Damon Jones, because Damon allegedly called LeBron and said, hey, man, you playing today? Oh man, I might not play it. I don't think I'm gonna play today. And then he relay it back to the gamblers, and they got an inside tip. Of course, it's stocks. You go to jail for that. You definitely can go to jail for gambling. So that would be the only way I could see them try to drag him into it, just like how they're trying to drag him into the whole Diddy stuff. So they're trying to sell his reputation.
Well, it's also that, and they want the public to be swayed by the big names.
Yeah.
So if you would just say Damon Jones,
Right.
or Michael Porter's brother, people aren't going to be as interested in this story. But as soon as the pictures that they show Damon Jones with LeBron in a picture that they show, to try to bring stuff. The biggest thing for me is this: we're living in an age where, growing up, and we saw the origin of ESPN. We saw the origin of it, Sports Center, and then it became what it is now. It's almost like MTV not showing videos, where all these talk shows that they have, instead of just just showing the sports. They have a betting platform,
right?
All this stuff is so contradictory, and it is crazy to me that ESPN can even report on what is going on with this scandal. They're robbing people too,
right? In the NBA, you left the fox in the hen house,
right?
You got all kind of partnerships. FanDuel, DraftKings. Come on, man.
And trying to get an NBA team there too.
Right, but then today, it was today or yesterday where the NCAA said that their athletes can bet on sports.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's Pandora's box is open now. And you know what? And this is almost like a good segue to get to SAS. Since we're talking about Sports Center, how he's more into this just ridiculous character now, and of course, taking shots at one of our famous politicians, Jasmine Crockett, and let's not forget Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama. Absolutely, and I hate to use this, but that one animal, and it rhymes with soon. So having that type of behavior, is just really, just. I don't understand what's going on. And he's in our age group, at least me and Mike. And he's in our age group. You sitting there watching somebody,
go ahead. I got to be there. Go ahead.
just to see him go into this where he talks about talking about how our favorite friend Gary Howard is one of his mentors, and all that, and then how you worked hard and you're a high school writer for the New York Times, and then you end up being a columnist for the Philadelphia Examiner, and then then all of a sudden this whole give or take stuff like this, and the stuff with Skip, that just totally put him in a whole different stratosphere. And I wouldn't say it's for the best, because it's getting even worse every year. And there's actual media people are really starting to say, I'm sick of this guy.
But you know what? My answer to that, I ignore all that stuff. I couldn't tell you what the dude said in the last month. I couldn't tell you anything Jason Whitlock said, my former colleague here in Michigan. What the hell, man? That's an easy way to remedy that.
It's the easiest way, and I tell luminaries that I'm in contact with who are always griping about Whitlock in particular. I said, just stop mentioning his name. I said, I have beef with him. I've had beef with him since the actual wheelchair game, and even before that, I interviewed him when him and Scoop Jackson was going through their thing. I tried to be the olive branch that they both grabbed onto, and interviewed Scoop for like 2 hours. It was a great interview. Whitlock would only allow me to send email questions with no follow-ups. So it was really something. But here in Philadelphia, we're talking about SAS, and I used to be so proud standing, we're covering the Sixers. That's why I was covering, all the games basically for a number of years. But my development was based on having David Aldridge, Phil Jasner, Donald Hunt, Stephen A. all in a locker room together as I'm walking in there for the first time, scared as hell. Phil Jasner was my biggest mentor here. And then obviously, David Aldridge, we and him came close friends. But the Stephen A. thing is this, when we were standing out in press row, and the Philly, they got steps in between the fans and press row, right under the basket. And, we would stand right there, and all you can hear was Stephen A., Stephen A., Stephen A., coming down, asking for autographs, asking for pictures. I was proud of that brother. I was so proud of him because we needed to be in certain spaces. The problem, what happened is the Inquirer was falling off, losing money, hemorrhaging money. And Stephen A. wrote 2 extensive hit pieces on Allen Iverson that brought the Inquirer back and also allowed him to go to ESPN. One game in particular, I think it was, I don't know if Allen Iverson was coming back for the last time from Memphis, but we were in the locker room and I was talking to Drew Holiday in particular, and we were discussing something, I had a great rapport with that team at the time. And as I'm talking to him, Stephen A. walks in, and Drew looks up at me and says, "Is he allowed in here?" And all of the players turned their backs to him, and he just threw up his hands and walked out. And I didn't see him in the locker room after that. He became, that's what Whitlock used to do. Whitlock would mess around and say all kind of things about the players, but would never come out the press room.
Right.
That's the easy way. That's the easy way.
As a reporter, you have to go into the locker room. You have to go in there and get your quotes. But unless you have another,
and might go in there and take heat after you wrote something.
Heat, exactly.
You got to go in there and hey man, what do you mean by that?
So there was this, I was like, Stephen, I got an interview. We've known each other for so long, and just to document it for the time. And it got to the point where I asked him about Donovan McNabb, who was coming off of 5 NFC championship games in 8 years. Yeah. And he totally was critical of Donovan. At that time, it was Tom Brady, it was Peyton Manning, and it was Donovan before Drew Brees came in. Right. But Donovan didn't get that type of accolades and shine that obviously the aforementioned did. So I was very disappointed that he was critical of Donovan to the point where I stopped the interview and got up. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. The one thing about me here in Philadelphia is if you fly off the handle in a way that's going to disparage our race, I'm coming after you. Yeah. I'm coming after you with my words, and I will challenge you unabated. It's something that has to happen. But we're in this era where journalists got a yellow stripe off their back. Yellow journalism. But it was really something to see someone. Like, I don't know. Like, at this point, I don't know if him and Bubba Chuck had some type of secret agreement that he was going to allow him to write like that about him. Right. That could be a possibility. And I hope that is what happened. But, him and Allen Iverson have had this relationship for so many years. So I'm hoping that this is what it is. But I told everybody way back when that he was positioning himself to be a conservative Republican, and now you're seeing all of that kind of come out where it's going to be easy for him to take up politics in a professional way.
Well, and it's funny you mentioned that because my interaction with him was back in 2001 before I moved out here. Phillies against the Bucks in the Eastern Conference Finals. So I was meeting Sal Palantonio, all the Philly type cats, and then the ESPN cats, Mark Schwartz, and all those cats. Dr. J was there. That Eastern Conference Finals was lit. I mean, Shy McBride, I remember seeing him. Met Sinbad. It was like everything was happening there. And then we were that close to the finals. And I won't even get into the politics of what happened to Scott Williams on that flagrant foul being upgraded out of the blue. But, so what happened is that, I would see him, but we didn't really interact. Then one day I walked into the press room at the Bradley Center back then, because they're in Pfizer now. Wow. But at the Bradley Center, I walked in there, and he was on the, because they used to have a couple phones for the reporters. This is how far back we were, back in 01.
Real telephones, huh?
Yeah, he was on the telephone. He was sitting there, like, yelling at somebody. I was like, because, I always saw him, like, when he's on Fox before, he used to come on as this angry man. I'm like, then I said, this is real life. This cat's actually yelling for no reason. There's nobody in this press room. I hear him all out the door. And I just said, damn, this dude's a trip. But I never interacted with him. And then, like I said, then all of a sudden he ended up at ESPN. Then he says famously he got fired, and then they brought him back. And then a lot of it had to do with Skip with that when they had ESPN had that cold pizza and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, so I've always looked at him from afar. Happy to see somebody in that position, but I'm wondering. We think of Eric Clemens, who was the first brother we remember, even though we had our Canadian brother too. But Eric Clemens was like the first American brother that we really remember being a prominent fixture at ESPN. Then Stewart. I'm wondering if Stewart, if he was still around, Stuart Scott, what would he be saying to Stephen A. about, dude, how are you carrying yourself as the prominent black man now in this position? Like I said, I used to talk to Eric Clemens a lot online, and I even told him when everybody was saying, yeah, Stuart Scott was the only one. I said, nah, you guys got to give. I'm forgetting our Canadian brother's name that passed away.
He passed away. Oh my gosh.
Because he was cool too. I met him too. But so those are guys were like, you think of like pioneers over at ESPN. Those are the names you look at. And then look at where we got going on now, where he's just totally out of control, especially trying to, act like he's a politician.
But you know what, guys? Those talking heads. I mean, hey, more power to guys doing that job. Mike, you can do that job. Mike Tillery, you can do that job. Those just happen to be the guys in that seat. Yeah. There's nothing they're saying is so insightful.
Well, especially with this so-called new media, where all of a sudden now Gilbert Arenas and all these guys just say whatever they want to. Journalism etiquette be damned. Those guys are just haters now. They don't think we know what we're doing.
I guarantee you guys can offer as much insight, if not more.
I definitely know that.
Than those dudes that are on the air today. Man, we're going to have to get out of here. Mike, I got to get you back. We got a little more time.
Anytime.
But before we go, the NBA season tipping off, just your thoughts. You talked about how exciting you think this season is going to be, and we'll get back and get to some of the other stuff, but I got to get out of here. Your thoughts on the upcoming season?
Well, I was heavily criticized for picking Wemby as MVP and Defensive Player of the Year. And people were like, has that ever been done? It just seems like, obviously I saw a move in preseason that made me call this pick because he's 7'5" and still growing. It's going to be so difficult because he's just not shooting threes to hold him under 50 points. Like that's where we are now. Like we're seeing how Wilt was dominating, and when we saw one game, but he did all these things of training with monks and doing all these spiritual things through the off season. So it gave him a control of everything that he is, and so the shots that he was making the other night was totally ridiculous. And the fact that he was just dunking all over Derek Lively and Anthony Davis was also ridiculous, given their defensive capabilities. The thing is, he's making everybody look small. So we're seeing a different generation, and his stature is going to spawn the next. And I don't think he's going to be stopped until that kid is born.
And and Mike, I want to get your thoughts, just what you're looking for going to season. And one thing to add to what Mike Tillery said, I used to think he was going to be soft, but this dude got a competitive fire in him, which I saw during the Olympics. I'm like, this dude ain't no punk, man. Yeah. So
that right there, that Olympic moment that we're all seeing, is what has created this monster right now.
Yep. Mike, take us home, baby.
Okay, yeah. So then before I do that, let me just acknowledge, if you guys like soccer out there, MLS playoffs are getting underway, and you might say, I don't care about the MLS, but your guy, some of you guys call him the best ever. I still say Pele, but Messi is playing in the playoffs. So if you want to watch MLS playoffs and see Messi, you got an opportunity. Also, Russell Wilson, he shot back at this Sean Payton character that's been a thorn in the side for the last 2 or 3 years. So kudos to Russell Wilson. I love the guy. All right. Now for me, with the whole Wemby thing, he still has to get over that other step. Will he be able to do this in the playoffs? If they do this in the playoffs.
I don't think it's going to be a challenge for him at all based on his physical stature.
Well, yeah, but we know how we've seen players look sensational during the regular season continuously every year, but something happens. Like Giannis, for example. Yeah. Remember what Toronto did to him? It was like, This guy's unstoppable. All of a sudden, it's like he doesn't even know how to play ball anymore. So
Boston, LeBron, Kobe in Utah. Yeah, it's happened.
Yeah,
but you know what? The thing about the playoffs, so people forget when you get in the playoffs, you're playing good teams every night.
Playing good teams,
they're going to see down. And nobody's winning the playoffs by themselves. MJ's come to town and get his ass kicked every year by the Pistons until he got guys around him. Mm-hmm. So when one guy falters, it's a collective doing the playoff. Wemby's going to damn sure be the catalyst. But go ahead, Mike. Finish this off.
So that's what I'm saying is that I'd be interested to see him make that next step, because, like you said, the first year we're like, is he still soft or whatever? Was this an anomaly? And then this year he's starting off looking absolutely brand new. And like you said, that Olympic play also helped this game grow. And then, getting over the injury too. So I would say for me, of course, it's for people that love LeBron, we got to wait like a couple months or at least a month before we see him.
Is he going to finish the year in LA?
It's hard to say, because if they really think Luka's ready to take over the reins, because the Warriors made them look absolutely ordinary. And you got a healthy, slim Luka there, and they still couldn't do anything with the Warriors. So I don't know. I don't know if they're really ready to let the reins go and say it's totally his team. But LeBron, of course, is going to be a helpful player wherever he goes.
I think he's godfather. I think he's godfather to LA.
Yeah.
Regardless of what everybody says, it had to be a stipulation, because he knew that his son was coming over the horizon. And then he got another son coming. I don't think he's leaving LA, because Spring Hill is there. I just don't think that it's going to happen. And because of his power in the league, Clutch basically owns a third of the players in the association. So I just don't think that he will leave LA, regardless of what's talking. We being journalists know the drama, we know the rumors, we know the talking points, we know the clickbait. So obviously the clickbait would be LeBron's going to get traded. You say something like that, then everybody's going to watch and click.
Right? I totally agree with that. Totally agree. Exactly. And Mike, the Warriors beat them, but they didn't have LeBron. That's a totally different game.
Right. But still, though, how everybody's ready to say, well, this is the first year LeBron's not the man. They've been waiting for this. And then now you really got to show that this is your team, because LeBron's gone for a month. So,
but you know what? I think LeBron's the smartest player, one of the smartest players ever. He's going to see this other dude up there and like, hey, go ahead, young fella. Mm-hmm. I just don't think his ego is – I think he wants to win. And if that means this guy's the guy, I guarantee you he's going to take big shots. LeBron's going to take big shots. Luka's going to take big shots. So, yeah, it's going to be fun. But we got to get out of here. Michael Tillery, brother, your insight always off the charts, man. We got to get you back. And I love that stuff about still at home base, man. Because I never could figure out how them cats were doing it, you know. So now I got a better idea. For the great Michael Tillery, Michael Roberson, I'm Rick Hampton. Peace, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. Hope your teams win. We got to come back and talk some NFL too, Mike. See you all this next time. Take care, everybody.
Yep.
Peace.
Peace.